Shalom, friends. Akiva Gersh here from Israel in 5, and I want to invite you to a very, very special and important virtual tour coming up this Sunday. You can sign up at israel.org/tour or using the link down below in the description. If you've been liking the Israel in 5 content, you're going to love this 1-hour-long program. We're going to be focusing on the Purim story, retelling the Purim story, and also drawing parallels between the ancient Purim story and the current war between Israel and the Hamas terror organization today. We're also going to be telling stories of miracles that have happened during this war, both to IDF soldiers as well as Israeli civilians. Don't miss it. Sign up at israel.org/tour or using the link in the description below. Hope to see you there. In the north of Israel, in the Golan Heights, there is a beautiful valley in the springtime filled with wildflowers, and it was also the site of one of Israel's hardest battles in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. Shalom, friends. This is Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. 1973, October. Israel was going into Yom Kippur, the Jewish people's holiest day of the year, day of fasting, of prayer, of yearning for personal atonement from God. Secular religious, it doesn't matter. The entire country in Israel shuts down. There's no cars on the road. There's no TV programs, no radio programs. Everyone is either at home or in the synagogue, spending the entire day in fasting and in prayer. And on that day in 1973, Israel was attacked, a surprise attack, simultaneously by Egypt in the south and Syria in the north. Egypt came into the Sinai Peninsula, and Syria rolled across the border into the Golan Heights. It was a very dangerous and scary moment for Israel, for the Jewish people, as it was under attack and under prepared for such a moment, such an event. I want to focus on the Golan Heights because that's where this beautiful valley that I mentioned is located in the north of the Golan Heights. And again, if you go there today, especially in the springtime, you see this beautiful valley just rolling out into the distance in front of you. You would never know that such a harsh and hard battle took place. But in 1973, that's exactly what it was. By the end of the battle, it looked like a graveyard for all kinds of military vehicles. As I said, the Syrian army came rolling across the border. In the entire Golan Heights, there was many, many different battles, but in general, there were about 1,400 Syrian tanks that rolled into the Golan Heights against 160 Israeli tanks. We're outnumbered almost 10 to 1. It would take about 24 to 48 hours for Israeli reservists to come into place and join the standing army to defend the country. And when they did, that's exactly what helped turn the tide. But until then, it was the standing army's job to hold off this onslaught. Right? There was great danger that the Syrian army would overtake the Golan Heights, and if they did, come into the rest of the north of Israel and capture territory there as well. It was because of the bravery and the nonstop fighting of Israeli soldiers during the beginning hours and beginning days of this war that a tragedy did not happen. It was a hard war. It lasted for a few weeks. Over 2,000 Israelis, both civilians and soldiers, were killed, which is an absurd number for any people, especially Israel, such a small country. But it could have been much worse. And if it wasn't for the standing army, it would have been. I want to highlight one person, okay, who really helped to save the day. All right. He was from a kibbutz in the north, but the other side of the north of Israel, closer to the Mediterranean Sea. His parents and the older people in his community were Holocaust survivors. He grew up with the stories of the Holocaust. And he grew up with the stories of what happens when the Jewish people don't have a state and don't have an army to protect them and to defend them. Right. And he went himself, he went into the army and he went into the tanks and he became a star soldier and he was asked to become an officer, and he did. And when he was done with his training, he had a few weeks off and he went back to his kibbutz, and it was Yom Kippur. And he wasn't in synagogue, he wasn't a religious guy, but he was, observing Yom Kippur in his kind of way at home. And all of a sudden, he heard airplanes overhead, and he knew that was not normal, especially for Yom Kippur. And he quickly got in touch with people in the army, and he heard that there was a surprise attack from the Golan Heights, and he knew that his men that he used to serve with would be there right now fighting. He said, I can't be here at home. How can I be at home while I know my brothers in arms are fighting on the front lines? He grabbed his uniform, grabbed some things, and he hitchhiked his way up to the Golan Heights. It took a few hours. And when he gets there, he saw chaos. He went to the main base there, and he saw absolute chaos, destroyed tanks, injured soldiers, and worse. And he saw a really frightening situation for the state of Israel. What did he do? He pieced together a tank crew. There's 4 men in the tank. There's the commander, which he was, the driver, the loader, and the shooter. He got that tank and another tank, and they went out to battle, right? No one told him to. No one guided him. No one instructed him. He just knew this is what he had to do. It's what we call in Hebrew being a Rosh Gadol, just taking initiatives, doing what you know needs to be done. Well, he got out there, and right away, within minutes, he was already fighting one-on-one with Syrian tanks. He faced one Syrian tank, shot first, blew it up, moved on. Happened a few minutes later, facing up against a Syrian tank, again, shot first, blew it up, survived, but he was so close to that tank that the radio in his tank got knocked out. He couldn't be in a tank without a radio. So he jumped out of his tank, took over the other tank, and now he was a one-tank force. Right? His name was Tzvika, and he called himself on the radio. The Tzvika force has just destroyed a Syrian tank. And all the other guys who are hearing this on the radio, they don't know who Tzvika is. They think, oh my God, the reservists have come here. And it gave him such confidence, like a boost in confidence that the reservists are finally here. And he kept getting on the radio talking about the Tzvika force as if he was like, 10, 20 tanks, but he was just one tank. And he kept fighting hour after hour, fighting against one tank, 3 tanks, multiple tanks. There was one time where it was just him against a couple of dozen Syrian tanks. And he did some unbelievable maneuvers, hiding himself behind certain areas, making it look like there were multiple Israeli tanks, and they actually broke formation and fled. Tzvika, eventually his tank got hit, and he literally was on fire. He rolled himself on the ground, got himself out of that situation, and took over another tank, and he kept going. In the end, he didn't stop fighting for about 36 hours. And those who were there or were with him and observed said in those 36 hours, he took out 61 Syrian tanks by himself. In the end, his whole tank crew and himself were injured. They were all taken to a local hospital. And he wouldn't even see medical treatment until his crew was taken care of first. And in the end, people from the army came up to him and said, look, we heard about this Tzvika force. Can you tell us anything about it? And he's like, well, my name's Tzvika, and there's my force. And they said, I know you've been through a lot. It's been a very, very difficult and challenging war, but can you think of more details about this force? We just kept hearing about this force. He says, my name is Tzvika, and this is my force. We're one tank. They realized, wow, he's telling the truth, and it's unbelievable. And I just want to share that story because there are many stories from the Yom Kippur War, but this is one of the stories that shows that it was the people of Israel, the soldiers, the fighters of Israel, right? And their heart and their desire not to lose, right? Their country, not to lose this country that we fought so hard to get and waited so long to have. And it was because of people like Tzvika, who gave his everything to his people, to his nation, that we were able to push back the Syrian forces way deep into Syria, right? And literally prevent a horrible tragedy for the state of Israel. It's people like Tzvika who we have to thank for the safety and the security and the continued existence of this beautiful country.